Okay, guys. So there was an article that caught my eye this morning, and everybody's talking about this today in Israel. And I think that we really have a lot to draw from the Torah portion on this subject. So check out this headline. U.S. said considering foregoing Hamas disarmament to begin reconstruction as the talks stall. So they said on Israel TV that the Trump team is pushing for an interim solution um, because they can't seem to find any Arab countries to come and enforce this disarmament that was agreed upon with Hamas. And I'm reading this and I'm like, huge surprise here, guys. You mean Hamas doesn't want to voluntarily disarm itself? Couldn't see that one coming. You mean other Arab countries who've been actively supporting Hamas for all these years aren't willing to go in and endanger their own lives to personally disarm Hamas? Ooh, big surprise. You mean the world prefers to just forget about that part and just go back to business, rebuild Gaza, and business as usual, and Hamas gets to go and reorganize itself for the next round? Really big surprise. And you say to yourself, really? This is the big grand peace in the Middle East? What happened to that? I mean, we have an American president who wrote the book about the art of the deal and has made so many deals in business. And all the people working on this have been such successful business people and made all these deals around the world. Why doesn't it work in the land of Israel? Well, here's the thing. The land of Israel does not follow the regular rules of negotiation or the art of the deal. It is not another business because it happens to be God's business. This is God's business, and he just happened to lay out the blueprint for how deals work in in this particular neck of the woods. So we would be wise, like I don't know, to look at maybe 3,500 years of history instead of just trying to make deals with concepts and ideas that we've thought up in the last, I don't know, few months. Look at the wisdom that God has given us in the Torah before we turn to politicians and businessmen to figure this one out. So I want to look in our parshas because I do not think that this is a coincidence. You know, the Philistines that Abraham and Isaac were dealing with in the southwest part of Israel, just like we're dealing with our enemies in the southwest part of Israel, are not so different. Abraham and Isaac are both terrorized by these Philistines who see these successful Hebrews who are being blessed by Hashem. They're digging wells, planting fields, and having this tremendous blessing. And instead of joining them and saying, how can we also attach ourselves to the God of Abraham and Isaac and also take part in this blessing, they're constantly trying to grab away what isn't theirs. And this causes obviously terrible difficulty for our patriarchs. And both of them have this back and forth trying to make these peace agreements with these, with Avimelech and these Philistines. So now here's the thing. Whenever I read these stories about Isaac in this coming week's portion, I feel like Isaac gets a little bit of. I always looked at Isaac as kind of having this boring, repetitive life. Everything that happened to Abraham just seems to have happened to him. Did Hashem fall asleep on the copy machine here? Like, are we just going through the stories again and he's just reliving what happened to his father? Nothing new under the sun? Like, it just seems to be like a rerun episode every time I read it. And so I never really felt a very deep connection to Isaac in the way that I feel about Abraham and Jacob because his stories just seemed kind of not that many stories and not that exciting and just kind of repeating Abraham's stories. But in this time, in this year's reading, I think that now Isaac is actually going to be my favorite of the patriarchs because there's a real depth here, and I want to go into that. It's a larger subject for another time, but every story that happens to Isaac, if you read it carefully, is he responds differently. The stories are similar to Abraham, but then a little bit different. We see it in the famine when Abraham leaves the land and Isaac stays. We see it in having a son that the wife prefers less. How do they treat that son? It's a broader subject, but if you read it carefully, you can see that Isaac really has his own unique flavor and approach that he brings to the problems that Abraham faced. And in a lot of ways, his decisions are rectifications of certain aspect of his father Abraham's life. And so, in that context, and in light of this article that came out today, I want to look at these strange stories about the wells of Abraham and Isaac fighting with the Philistines. Because both of them seem to get in these similar fights over wells, and even the same wells, meaning Isaac is actually literally redigging the wells that were dug by his father, and they seem to twice come to some kind of peace resolution. What are we learning here? What are we meant to take from this? Maybe I want to suggest that we have a map being laid out for us in our times. So I want to start with Abraham. In Bereshit, Genesis chapter 21, we hear that Avimelech, the king of the Philistines in Gerar, accompanied by Pichol, the chief of his troops, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Okay, that's a nice start. So now swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or with my son or with my grandson. He wants to make a multi-generational peace agreement. The same kindness that I have shown you, welcoming you into my land, you will show me and to the people of the land in which you have sojourned. So he's saying, Abraham, please be kind to me. I've been so kind to you, and you should be kind to me. And this sounds like kumbaya. This is like Middle Eastern Woodstock over here. And Abraham replied, I will swear. At first glance, okay, seems really nice. Avimelech is like, wow, you're so godly. Let's just all get along. This is the original Abraham Accord. But then in Abraham's next response, we find out that not is all so well in paradise. Because what does Abraham say? It says, Abraham then disputed with Avimelech over the well of water that Avimelech's servants had seized. So he says, yes, I'll make peace with you. But by the way, your people have been stealing my stuff. They've been terrorizing me and taking my water source, which is basically like, your source of life. It's real terror to do that. And Avimelech is like, oh my gosh, I don't know who did this thing. You didn't tell me about it. I didn't hear about it until today. Does that sound familiar? People terrorizing, seizing things that don't belong to them, and the leaders are like, oh my gosh, us? We never heard about this. Pay to slay. We don't even know about this. Didn't Avimelech just say he wants a peace treaty? So, well, what should be the next line? If he's so innocent and he just found out about this, what would be the next line? Don't look in your Bibles. What should be the next line? If it was me writing the story, I would say, Avimelech would be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about this. I'm going to make sure you get reimbursed and repaid, and I'll give you water. I didn't know, but of course, I'm going to make sure it doesn't ever happen again. Well, we get instead, and Abraham, forgive me, but this to me looks like the original Oslo. Look at the next verse. In verse 27, it says, exactly in the verse where you think that Avimelech is going to say, oh my gosh, here, I'm so sorry. Look what Abraham says. He says, Abraham took flocks and cattle and gave them to who? To Avimelech. And then the two of them made a treaty. Oh my gosh. Like land for peace. People keep trying to take our land from the people who have like a very little bit of land. Avimelech took precious water from Abraham. And so instead of saying, hey, give me back my well, he's like, here, let me give you some sheep. And now, how do I know that this was a strange response? Because you guys are probably saying to yourself, maybe that's just how things were in the Middle East. That's just like some sort of ancient tradition that we don't know so much about. No, because look at the next verse. Avimelech is surprised. Abraham set aside 7 ewes of the flock, and Avimelech asked Abraham, what are these 7 ewes that you've set by themselves? Meaning he's like, wait a minute, this is a strange peace treaty. You just said that I damaged you, and now you're giving me something. And Avimelech said, what are these? And I'm thinking about Avimelech thinking like, wow, these Jews are terrible negotiators. And then what does Abraham say? He says, you are to accept these 7 ewes from my hand as a testimony that I dug this well. So let me get this straight. The well belonged to Abraham. People stole it from him, took what was his, and now Abraham is giving them an offering in order that they just admit that little thing that it was already his to begin with is actually his. Does this sound familiar? It's like we're living and reliving this. It's like, oh, you came into our land and slaughtered people indiscriminately. Okay, so you know what? We're going to give you some humanitarian aid and take these trucks and just promise to like maybe not do it so much so often again. Okay, guys? That's like this is like right here. And even Avimelech is surprised. And so then they called that place Beersheba because that's where they made the oath. This is the classic deal that the Jews keep falling into in the Middle East from then until now. First, Israel gets attacked. Then the other side, in order to get them to promise to stop attacking us, we give them something. Here, take this back. This is a perfect test case. Does it work? Well, does it work? The Bible is going to tell us. All you need to do is jump to chapter 26. And Avimelech says to Isaac, "You go away from us. You've become more powerful than we are." So he's like, okay, Isaac is now sitting in Gerar, and he thinks, well, my father made this big grand peace deal for generations and generations to come. So Isaac went to the Gerar Valley and settled there. So he goes to like the outskirts of Gerar. And Isaac redug the wells of water that had been dug in the days of his father, which the Philistines had blocked up after Abraham's death. So right now we find out, how well did Abraham's peace agreement work? Not very well, because the moment he wasn't there, they blocked up his wells. And so Isaac redigs these wells and gives them the same name that his father had given them. So from here we learn that the peace treaty was not only breached but it was breached like as soon as possible. It was like breached at the first possible opportunity. So Isaac redigs them. Now, I did a little pop quiz for Jeremy, and I think I could do the same pop quiz for you guys. I always think of Isaac as the one who's always digging wells, getting bothered by the Philistines, and then just being really non-confrontational and just moving on to the next station. Can you guys like thumbs up me if that's how you've read this story up until now? I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. That's just how I felt. Like Isaac was like the pacifist. Isaac was the one who doesn't fight back. He just keeps on moving. And now for the first time, I read the story and I realized it never, ever says that. It actually says the exact opposite. Isaac's servants dig these wells and then found a well. I'm in verse 19, found a well of spring water. And the shepherds of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's shepherds, saying, this is a little bit of an addition in the translation. I don't know why, but it says this water is ours. And they fight over it. And Isaac named the well Esek, contention, because they contended with him. This is amazing because like they didn't dig the well, but still they're just like, yes, it's ours. It's ours. They don't have to have a reason. Free these wells. These are our wells. They don't have to have any explanation, history. Nope, doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. All that matters is we're the indigenous people. We're claiming it's ours. I always read the next verse as he just kind of ran away. They dug another well and quarreled over that too. And Isaac named it Sitnah. But then I realized it never said that Isaac forfeited that first well. It doesn't say that anywhere. In reality, he named it. What does it mean to name something? What did he do when he redug his father's wells? He named them the names that his father had named them. Naming something is taking ownership over it. Meaning, what was Isaac's response to the fights that these people contended, that these Philistines contended with him? It says they fought, and then he named them, meaning he stayed owner of them. He maintained his sovereignty over them, but his response was not just to hold on to that well. His response was to dig another well. Oh, it's bothering you that I'm digging wells? So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dig another well. It doesn't ever say that he did not keep control over the first well. And then I'm going on to 22. Then he went to another well, and they did not quarrel over it. How do I know that my theory is right? Because what happens what would have happened when he dug the third well if he had forfeited the first two? People would have taken that well. Obviously, people only don't take your third well if you made sure to win the fight on the first two wells. If he had given up and forfeited the first two wells, he would have been unsuccessful in the well in Rehovot. And a lot of people read Isaac as this like leaving the wells alone. It's simply not true. It simply doesn't say that in the text. I want to suggest that he held on to them and responded by settling even more land. His response to the fight was just to go and say, oh, you fought with me? You came here and you claimed something that wasn't yours? I'm going to settle even further. I'm going to go even deeper. And how do I know that I'm right? Because of the next verse. In the meantime, Avimelech came to him from Gerar together with a group of friends and Pichol, the chief of his troops. When you come with the chief of the troops, that means that you are concerned. He wasn't just coming on a friendly visit. You don't come with the Secretary of War on a friendly visit. And Isaac says, why have you come to me since you hate me so much? And they replied, we have seen about your father, and now we see regarding you too that God is with you. If he had been constantly forfeiting and losing fights and running away, would they see that God was with him? No, they would say the God of the Philistines is with us. The God of the Hebrews doesn't exist. But he's saying, we see that God is with you. You only see that if he's been continually, successfully maintaining these wells. And then he says, now look at this oath. Look at the gentle differences, the subtle differences between the oath here versus the oath with Abraham. He says, let a solemn oath be made between us, that we made with your father, continue to be enforced, and make a covenant with you, that you will not do us evil. He's not saying be nice to us, be sweet to us, be kind to us. He's saying that you will not do us evil. Who do you tell to please not do you evil? Somebody who's pretty darn tough in the neighborhood, somebody who's been winning fights. That's not what you say to somebody who's been losing fights. That's what you say to somebody who's been winning fights. Compare this to what they offered to Abraham. To Abraham, they were like, well, we're really kind to you. Could you also be kind to us? Let's be kind to one another. What is right under the surface when they say, please don't harm us? That means that Isaac has been diligently standing and keeping his land. I think that proves that Isaac was not running away. He was naming the wells and digging more. And I think this also solves another mystery, because who in the world, blind Isaac, scholarly Jacob, who was guarding the wells that he was maintaining? I think the only option is the big hairy guy with the weapons up to his eyeballs, flanked with 400 men, which solves for me perhaps another mystery of why did Isaac love Esau so much? Because I don't really see any other candidates of who was maintaining all of these settlements that they made. So they make this deal and they say, don't harm us. And then this deal actually works. He doesn't give him 7 sheep. He says, if you make, he goes, we will leave you alone and let you continue to settle the land, and you don't harm us. So the art of the deal in this neck of the woods is not the Abraham Accords. I would suggest that it's the Isaac Accords. I think we need to start saying from now on, we would like to settle the Isaac Accords. And the leaders who are, making these deals need to take a peek at the Torah portion to see that the deals that work in the area where we live are laid out right here in the Bible by none other than Isaac himself. So with that, lots of love, guys. Have a great week.